Dr. Malcolm Davis is a senior analyst at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, and he joins us live now from Canberra. Good to speak to you this evening. These exercises, are they more of a show of muscle and strength and power than necessarily a message to the United States?
Well, I think it's the case of being both. On the one hand, you're seeing the Chinese and the Russians sending a very strong message to the US that they are coordinating their actions both in the South China Sea and in other areas. And so this is a strategic message to Washington, D.C. at a time when the US is focusing very much inward on the US election. And what that message is about is that China and Russia are rising powers and are challenging US predominance in the region and more globally.
I guess there's a symbolic exercise, which is the seizure of an island, which is, interesting because, of course, so much of the tension has been the build-up of some of these islands around the South China Sea by China.
Exactly. I think that's highly significant. The fact that the Russians have sent two Udaloy-class ASW destroyers and also a Rapucha class amphibious warfare ship, and they're practicing island seizure, is highly significant because what it says is that the Russians and the Chinese are working together on these sorts of tasks. And for the Chinese, they will learn an awful lot from the Russians in terms of how to seize islands, whether it's in the South China Sea or north in the East China Sea in regards to the Senkaku and Diaoyu Islands dispute against Japan.
The sheer scale of the weaponry that Russia is bringing in is also quite astonishing, really, with the message it's trying to send.
Well, I don't think we should overplay that. They're sending two Udaloy-class ASW destroyers. Now, they're quite old ships. They're certainly not the latest Russian ships that the Russian Navy have been using, for example, in strikes against Syria. The Rapucha, the landing ship, is more important, I think, because that gives the exercises an ability to do the island seizure. But what they're not sending is also important in the sense that the Russians are not sending submarines. And that would be highly significant because if the Chinese were going to take some drastic action in the South China Sea, they would want to be working with the Russians in terms of practicing ASW operations. And so we're not seeing evidence that the submarines are involved in this.
How concerning globally is it that China and Russia are aligning themselves?
I think we should be extremely concerned because what you have is a rising China that's assertive and confident and determined to challenge US strategic primacy in Asia. And you also have a resurgent, returning Russia that is aggressive and expanding its borders in Eastern Europe and seeking to challenge NATO and undermine NATO. And if these two giants begin to really coordinate at a strategic level, then we are in trouble because suddenly we have to face two major powers. Admittedly, the Russians are nowhere near what the Soviet Union used to be in terms of military capability, but they still do have substantial military capability that is being modernized, and they have thousands of nuclear weapons. So we do have to be worried about the possibility that Beijing and Moscow are beginning to coordinate their actions.
I wonder where you think it leaves Australia and the role and our alignment that we've had with the United States as such a key ally for so many years.
Well, I think that now is not the time to go wobbly, to quote Margaret Thatcher. We need to stick with the US. We need to strengthen our alliance with the US. There's been a lot of discussion in the media recently about Chinese influence purchasing in Australia with donations and soft power and so forth. We need to resist efforts by Beijing to undermine the alliance between Australia and the United States, and we should be strengthening that. And I think that Australia as a middle power can actually step up to the plate and be a substantial power in the region and play a more substantive role alongside the United States to reinforce the rebalance to Asia.
But how do you think we do that?
Well, it means we do more burden sharing. We actually take a more substantial role in Asia in terms of maybe freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, maybe having closer relations with Japan, allowing the US greater access to Australian facilities. We need to send strategic signals to Beijing and Moscow in the same way that they are sending strategic signals to us. And the strategic signal that we send is that there is no China choice, that we stick with the United States and we're not going to turn our backs on the United States at a critical time, at an inflection point in history.
Malcolm, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.